Hello everyone and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Ali.
And I'm Sarah.
And it's all international all the time on this episode today. There are so many tournaments and so little time to talk about all of them.
Don't let it end. Don't let it end. Oh, it's so exciting. But you were at one of the games, Ali.
I actually got to do something very cool. I got to do something which I sort of teased on the Instagram, is I got to go to an in-person press conference at the home of training English football, we'll say, which is St George's Park.
Was it just as storied and amazing as you thought it was going to be? Like you walked in and you were like, oh my goodness, if these walls could talk.
Oh, absolutely. They have their cap board, which shows all of the players who got the caps, including little Farah on her own at plus 170.
That's really cute.
All of the rooms are named football things. So the press conference was in the corner flag room.
That's really cute, actually.
And stuff like that. And my favourite touch, I have to say, was on the, you get the men and women symbols on toilets.
Yeah.
Where you had that without the heads, but the heads were used as footballs down the bottom.
Cute.
I thought that was adorable.
That's what my home's going to look like when I get older. All right, so let's do it. Arnold Clark Cup, otherwise known as He Believes.
Yeah, so this tournament has been as I expected, and also elements where I expected nothing like it. It's been such a up and down tournament, which has been fantastic.
What was expected? What was unexpected?
The thing that I was expecting was that there was going to be a lot of support for this tournament back of the Euros wins, and we're seeing that. We saw that, and it is, for the most part, translating into the games that are not England playing as well.
I'm happy to hear that, because that's not what's happening in She Believes, and it's extremely disappointing.
Yeah, obviously some people leave, and that's their right and things like that, but you're still seeing a good, solid support for these teams. And you also see a lot of people are getting behind the Korean team, because obviously they don't have many fans that have travelled, because it's quite a trek for... So we're building that community that we had at the Euros of fandom, which I hoped for and expected, and the population has not disappointed.
That's fantastic.
Unexpected is some of the performances that we've seen, and we will get onto those later on, but watching these games, some of them you think you had a lock on, and it was no, gonna throw you a curveball.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk England first, because I think there's the most to say, at least between the two of us, about England. And let's talk England overall over the two games that we've seen them play. I'll say, obviously, this episode is dropping on Wednesday. The final games of Arnold Clark and She Believes are being played after we record this. So today, if you're listening to this episode before those games start, which is why we're only going to be talking about the first two games of each tournament. So let's talk England.
In fact, I think that's a perfect thing, because that's going to show one thing that I did not expect, which is Serena has been mixing up the lineup. I thought that this was going to be the tournament where she is cementing that lineup for the World Cup, and just keep playing the same players like she did over the Euros, doesn't rotate, and she's gone, no, I need to see what each and every one of the players that I'm going to call up can do. And
do you know what?
Yes.
I had a similar thought about the US and Vlatko, and both Vlatko and Serena are using this opportunity not to gel the starting 11, but to see maybe the fringe players, or who could maybe sub into the number 10 position if our starting number 10 gets hurt. That's what this is being used for. And it's just, it makes so much sense, of course, because these teams, that's as if to say, if they were going to use this to cement their final 11, that's as if to say that they would have known who they were taking the World Cup last year. And that's absurd. But it is just a shame, because none of these teams are going to have many games, maybe two maximum, after these tournaments before the World Cup starts. They're just, the FIFA windows don't provide for it, and that's disappointing for this year. So it's a very quick run up to the World Cup this year.
Yeah, exactly. So I was completely taken aback by that, but I suppose that's why she's England manager and I'm not.
That's the only reason.
Only reason. I will say one thing that coming out of that press conference that surprised me. I knew she didn't play favourites, but she's so matter of fact about it, because everybody was asking about Kira Walsh. So she got asked who's fit. And she said everybody. So everybody was like, oh, does that mean Kira Walsh gets to come back? You must be so happy about that. And her response was, well, she's happy about that. I've got options.
Ooh.
You know, do you know what I mean? Stone cold, stone cold. And I'm making it sound a little bit harsher than it meant.
No, I absolutely love that. Nobody has made the team yet. Nobody is cemented into any position yet. Maybe in her mind, but definitely not to anybody else.
No, and so obviously Walsh did start, but it was very much like, no, I can play Williams in the midfield. I've got Zellum that can play in the midfield. Like, she was very much like, Kira's happy she can play. Kira's happy she's back. But that doesn't mean she's guaranteed to start in my lineup.
One of the reasons I think she's been able to push England as far as she's been able to push is partly because of that. When you're in a squad and the mentality becomes, oh, well, no matter what I do, I know that that's not going to be my spot. I can outwork her in practice. I can outplay her on the field, but I know it's her spot. Your team's only going to go so far. She has made a competitive environment and basically said, off with this ceiling. We're going to go as high as we possibly can, and we're going to get better while we do it. So let's talk about highlights. Overall, for you, what have been some of the highlights, positives that have come out of the past 2 games for England?
2 words. Lauren James. Lauren James.
Yeah.
Like, we knew she had the talent. We knew that it was there. And to see the difference of her from being under Emma Hayes' tutelage as she has, she came out of that in that first game absolutely all guns blazing. I would love to have seen her heat map because she was here, there and everywhere. Her goal was a chance that came out of nothing. She literally pickpocketed some great play between them all and got that goal against Korea. And I think Lauren James is going to give Serena a headache in the fact that...
Is it her or Alessia Russo?
Exactly.
I mean, okay, I will say, though, Lauren James has the ability to play on the outside as well. And I think one of the 2 words that came out of this, highlights-wise, are Rachel Daly. Guess what position she was playing? Also the number 9. England has a plethora. I mean, we can talk about how Beth Mead is hurt. We're missing Beth Mead. Guess what? This is an embarrassment of riches on this team right now. It is an absolute embarrassment of riches. I equate it to the US in 2019, where you're just like, I'm sorry, she's coming off the bench?
Yeah.
And just to touch on this Lauren James, it's funny. It's funny. I'm glad you said, we knew that this was coming because social media exploded as if people were like, who is this girl? It's like, no. Lauren James has been, I think I'm going to say, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but it seems to me that the general feeling around Lauren James has been, okay, we hear she has talent, but we've gotten to see hints of it, but we haven't gotten to see it on display for a full game to the level of which we've heard about it. And who else to bring it out but the stunning Emma Hayes? And that game, I think, will be cemented in time as the moment that everybody understood just exactly how powerful of a player Lauren James is. She can change games. She can control games. She is the future of this squad, hands down. Whether she, plays a starting role, a sub role, whatever's going to happen in this World Cup, it's kind of neither here nor there, because that was the significance of this moment, is that she is the future.
Yeah, absolutely. On Saturday, I was very lucky to talk to some other journalists, and they were saying that the reason, God bless her, Beth England is not getting back into the England squad is because that front 4 is on lock. It's 5 when Mead is fit, but like that 4 is on lock. Russo, James, Chloe Kelly and Lauren Hemp, those are on lock. And then also you bring Daly, you can either have her as we have been as a number 9 up front getting her the goals, but you can also play her at the back if you need to. So you're not wasting a position by bringing Daly.
Okay, so let's talk about Rachel Daly. Rachel Daly obviously plays the number 9, has historically and always played at the left back for England because of Phil Neville. And for a long time, we know everybody said, put her up front. And she's one of the leading goal scorers of the WSL. She earned that start at the number 9. She earned it. And she did not let that slip through her fingers. When I saw that she was starting, I said out loud, okay, that's step 1. But if she wants to play there again, she needs to finish. She needs to put goals away. And boy, did she.
Yeah, exactly. So it was beautiful. And to be honest, a mixture of all things, having multiple names on the score sheet, that is just proving so well for England. We've got a dedicated penalty taker now in Stanway, which England fans will despair with me about the amount of missed penalties that we've had from various internationals.
I as a US fan don't remember any.
But like Ellen White couldn't do it, and then Steph Houghton couldn't do it, and like there were so many players that we tried to take the penalties and it just didn't work. And again, I think it's this no nonsense fearlessness that Stanway had. Is she's just like, I'm just gonna boot it at you.
I also want to highlight, I think, some of the negatives, because there still are some. What are some takeaways for you about this that you feel like England could be doing better and that you would like to see them working on?
I think England started really slowly in both games. We had chances, we were just not putting them away. I mean, Korea, the fact that we didn't score until like the 41st minute and that was a penalty is concerning for me. I mean, all credit to the Korean defence, but we should be quicker off the pace. We should be troubling the defence more than we were. Second half, we've picked it up for both games. However, a higher ranked team will punish us quicker.
And Italy almost did, quite frankly. It was almost tied, and we're not going to get into was the ball over the end line, was the ball over the goal line. I think it was over both end lines. I think it was over the end line and over the goal line. But just to say, I mean, better teams will, and Italy, yes, almost did. Absolutely. All right, let's talk Belgium. We're done with England. Let's talk about Belgium, because this is a team that has been really exciting. They were I think better than everybody expected in the Euros. And they've come into this tournament, they've taken a win from South Korea, and they've beat Italy. And they're going into Wednesday's game having won 2 games in this tournament. Mind you, it was by 1 goal each game. But this is the Belgium that we saw in the Euros, and I think that they're very underestimated.
100%, because I think they don't have, apart from, say, Nikki Everard and Tessa Woolard, they don't have the big name recognition players. So a lot of people will like discount them as they've only got those 2 players, but they are such a well-oiled team.
They're organized. They're so organized.
They are organized.
That is my big takeaway. I remember in the Euros, Belgium was surprised, because you expect it from Germany, right? You expect it from some of these teams. You didn't necessarily expect it from Belgium, and they are organized. They're organized on defense and they're organized on offense, and they play in this very strange kind of like a 4-1-4-1 formation, and it allows for an incredible a dynamic aspect and mobility of players to change around positions as need be. But they're never finding themselves in the same space. They're organized. They know how to play within their system, and that's why they're winning games.
Yeah, and they're so damaging on the wings. So damaging on the wings. The absolute pace on them is outstanding. So it all comes down to this game, because it's England versus Belgium. Both have got 2 wins apiece. England are ahead on goal difference alone at the moment. I will say what is interesting is Belgium have managed to pull wins out from being 1-0 down and it being 1-1, which England haven't gone down for a very, very long time under Serena. It'd be interesting to see if that happens, because it could. How will they pull themselves back up, because they haven't been in that position for so long?
That's a really great point. And I mean, I will say, in Belgium, in both of their games so far, has been able to score early on. Against Italy, it was in the first 20 minutes, I believe. I think it was in the 19th. And against South Korea, I mean, it was later on in the first half, but it was still in the first half. So if England is going to go down early, or if they're going to go down, it is going to be early, like you said, Allie, because they have been off to slow starts in the game. All right, I want to spend just a minute on Italy and South Korea before we move on. Italy, we talked about coming into this tournament because we love watching the Italian league, right? And we've talked about how they've been starting to invest, and we're seeing it in the league and we're seeing it in the national team. How do you feel like Italy has fared in this tournament so far?
I know they've got back-to-back losses, but they have performed spectacularly in this tournament. They have got this like grit that we haven't seen from some teams in a while, and they never say die is the honest answer. And they've managed to pull it back. So they've gone 1-0 down and they've managed to pull it back in both games. And then it's been, for the Belgian one, it was in the dying moments of extra time in the 90 minutes. And England, it was well into the second half. So I think they are definitely a team to watch. We need to see the more investment because they're just at that stage where they tire at about 70, 75 minutes. And we need just a little bit more investment, a bit more training, more of them to go full time to get them over that 90-minute line.
They're growing so quickly. And I think, weirdly, I think the scoreline says it all, like you just mentioned. They had the ability in their hands to draw both of these games against Belgium and against England. Italy, for me right now, and we said this last week, Allie, like, they're where Spain was, 4 years ago. They're where Brazil was maybe 2 years ago. And with the continued investment, they have been growing so rapidly, and they truly are. They're one to watch in the future, but they are definitely still ones to watch in the World Cup too.
And then on the other hand, we have South Korea, who have spectacularly underperformed.
High hopes for them as the runners-up of the Asia Cup 2022.
Exactly. We had high hopes for them, and they can and could do it. But I don't know if it's tiredness, because a lot of them did come over from Korea. I don't know what it is. But they have been very underwhelming, is the honest answer. Defensively, attacking-wise, just it hasn't worked for them. It's been a shame because we was expecting such a high thing for them, and it was just they went 1-0 down against England in the end of the first half, and I think that just their heads went down.
I'll also add that it does seem that they're trying a lot of different formations, and they're playing with a 3-back, which, especially for them with not a lot of speed and also not a lot of height on their back line, seems like what has truly let them down so far this tournament. Let's go around the world.
Starting with the Pinta Cup, it all comes down to the final day as both the front runners Iceland and Wales drew against each other. Wales take on fellow home nation Scotland, whereas Iceland take on the Philippines. However, Scotland are not out of it just yet, as a win for them and a draw/loss for Iceland means they still can take the title.
Over to the Tournoi de France. The final 2 games of the tournament are being played after we record this, so we don't have the most up-to-date news on this. However, after 2 games, France sit atop the table with 2 wins and just Norway left to take on. Norway beat Uruguay in their opening match, but lost to Denmark 2-0 in their second. Denmark was taken down by France 1-0. So if Norway can squeak one by France to take the tournament, they'll need to make up for a big goal differential, and otherwise, it's all to France.
And finally, a new tournament, the FFA Cup of Nations. Australia seems to finally found their groove, having won both of their games, including a nail-biting game against Spain, who almost overcame the 3-goal deficit with 2 very quick goals in the second half.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
And we are going over to She Believes. From He Believes to She Believes. The tournament named She Believes, with a team that doesn't want to be there being forced by the federation, who's probably predominantly male, to be there. It's ironic, and we're going to talk about it.
It is. It's one of the few things I agree with Hope Solo on, which is it's a dumb name.
Are you listening to her podcast? How do you know what Hope Solo thinks right now?
She's literally said it many times before. That
I think that we can all agree it's a very bad name, and we should maybe make a proposition. Maybe we'll take votes for what we can rename She Believes, and we'll tweet that at US Soccer, because I'm not entirely sure. When Arnold Clark, the seller of cars, is a better name than your tournament, you know you've done something wrong.
Exactly. Ours is just a sponsorship thing. Pintar is based on where it is. Like, guys, you could come up with something.
I will say though, for as weird, when the Arnold Clark Cup first got announced, I was like, oh boy, like, could this be a worse name? And it has taken on such a life of its own. It is so much fun. I absolutely love it. So let's go back and talk She Believes. I think everybody knew that this was going to be a more competitive tournament than it was last year, but I don't think that anybody expected it to be quite this competitive. So before we get into the games, actually, we're going to talk quickly about what's been going on around Crystal Dunn. And before we get into this, I want to just preface this by saying this isn't like drama. This is pertinent information with regards to the position that she plays. And I love that she voiced her opinion and how she voiced her opinion. And I don't think that a lot of players in this situation do. And I think it's really important to highlight for all of those reasons. So let's get into it.
So obviously the big thing with Dunn is that she plays as a defender for country and as an attacker for club. And the big thing is, does Vlatko need to take a page from Serena and the management of the players that she has that, again, tend to play slightly different positions? We did see this week that for the first time, probably ever, that Vlatko commented on the Dunn situation, and his response was basically, well, she's not talked to me about it, which I find very hard to believe is the honest answer to that. Dunn's main thing was about how the mentality for her is hard to go between the two in club, that she's up front, and country she's a defender.
Yeah, I think that's what kicked this all off, is that she was asked about it, and she just simply said, yeah, it's hard. Before we even get into the statements, can we just talk about the soccer? I mean, we're talking about the soccer IQ for Jess Park, about, how intelligent you have to be to move from the outside to the inside. Let's take a moment and appreciate what Crystal Dunn has had to do, the mental gymnastics and just the intelligence that it takes for her to mentally switch from being a forward to being a defender. It is completely different. People are going to be like, oh, it's the same because you forwards go again. No, it's not the same. It was completely different in the fact that she's been able to do this at the level that she's been able to do this, to be one of the top attackers in the NWSL, to be one of the top defenders in the world, on one of the best teams in the world. I just want to take a moment and appreciate that. I think it's important what you said about Vlatko, because I've been on a lot of press conferences with him, and he doesn't like to answer questions like that. I was on the press conference before the U.S. first game against Canada, and he was asked about the mentality of the U.S. women's national team, and he took offense to it. I'm not going to lie. So the fact that he had been pushed hard enough and been asked so many times that he felt to comment on this is, I think, pretty noteworthy. And I'm just going to quote a bit of what he said, because I think it's important. Vlatko said, quote, obviously she's a world-class player, but she has a choice too. She can compete as a midfielder, but she has to compete with Roosevelt and Lindsey Horan and Katarina Macario when she comes in as well, right? So if she doesn't feel comfortable playing left back, or she doesn't want to be left back, nobody is forced to play in any position. As a left back, she's world-class and probably one of the best backs in the world. As a midfielder, she has pretty stiff competition at that position. So everybody has a choice, and then we make the decisions.
Ouch.
Yeah, those feel like fighting words to me, don't they?
Yeah, that, oof.
This is so difficult because it does in a way feel like the U.S. women's national team is like airing dirty laundry out in public, doesn't it? Somebody asked Crystal Dunn a question, and then they asked Vlatko a question, and so he had to comment on her response. Is it airing dirty laundry? No, I really don't think so. And we'll get into Crystal Dunn's response to that. That's not what's happening. There's not internal turmoil in the U.S., which is kind of what I was trying to allude to before we started talking about this. it's just an important note because we're going to get into talking more about Crystal Dunn. So obviously then Crystal Dunn gets asked about Vlatko Andonovski's comments, which, by the way, we'll come on to the fact that he called her a midfielder, but I would have put her as a forward. That's okay too. Let's just play some of what she said.
Yeah, I guess there's some things that I guess people probably are questioning or whatever, but I think honestly for me it's really important that I'm always going to be my most authentic self. It's not a secret that I've always, struggled with identity on the field. I'm currently probably one of the very few players, if not the only player, that plays one position here and then goes into club and plays a different position. And it's not to say that I don't tackle and embrace that, challenge, but it's not something that is necessarily easy or necessarily something that, I absolutely love at all times. So for me, it's just, just being authentic to how I feel. I think when I was younger, it was easy to just say, oh, I'm happy to always play wherever the coach needs me. And I think I've embraced my role 100% on this team, always competing to be the absolute best outside back I can possibly be. But the reality is, I almost sometimes feel like I'm a part-time outside back. And I think that it's important that people, know my story.
I think she said everything right there. And I'm really happy that she was able to air that out and talk about it. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. This is not a secret to anybody. My heart is split because I want Crystal Dunn to be able to play the position that she feels she's best at, because she is one of the best players in the world. She's one of the smartest players in the world. She was one of the most gifted players in the world. And for her to not be in a position that she's best suited for is definitely a detriment to her and, frankly, a detriment to her development. And like we said, this was a tournament where Vlatko's been trying people out. Maybe in this last game on Wednesday, today when this episode is dropping, our questions will be answered. But let's get into it, Allie.
Yes, let's talk about the games as a whole. So the big game we have got to talk about is the second game in this tournament, which is the USA versus Japan. USA, and I'm going to say this and you're going to kill me, the USA squeaked a victory over Japan.
I agree.
Because for me, that game had a 1-1 written all over it, and Japan were just... I won't say Japan was super unlucky, because the keeper, Murphy, it was phenomenal. But I won't say that was the most comfortable win for the USA.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think I can sum this game up in maybe one sentence and just say that Mal Swanson, formerly Mal Pugh, is carrying this team.
She's going to break her back with the weight that she is carrying for this team.
No discredit to Alex Morgan, who I believe is the one who played that ball. But that was purely Mal making the right run, using her speed, and then beating the goalkeeper one-on-one, which is so much harder to do than it ever looks. And she has done this time and time again. Mal Swanson is so much fun to watch right now. If you are watching one forward, I'm sorry, I think it needs to be her, because she is at the top of her game, and the U.S. absolutely would not have won this game without Mal.
You wouldn't have won against Canada without her, to be honest. That's what I'm talking about carrying, because whereas I was talking about the positive of England having multiple names on the score sheet, Swanson has come in with such a zip that I'm not sure where that's come from.
I'll tell you exactly where it's come from. It came from not making the squad. It came from not making the squad last time.
Oh, it's a Beth
It's
Mead
a revenge tour.
tour.
It is fully a revenge tour. And we're reaping the benefits of it. For me, look, I think that the game against Canada was actually way more convincing than the one against Japan. Obviously, Mal Pugh has a lot to do with all of these wins, but there's a difference between these two games. And I think here's what it is. The U.S. came out strong against Canada, and you could see the mentality that we're used to seeing from the U.S., where we're going to come out strong, we're going to press you hard, and we're going to take control of this game right away. And that's how we're going to play this. That did not happen against Japan. And not only that, but Japan was actually able to maintain equal possession, if not a little bit more possession, than the U.S. throughout the game. So the Japan game wasn't quite as convincing. However, I am going to choose some positivity here and squash any of the haters and say that the lineup against the Japan game was very different from that against Canada. And there were a lot, it was a smorgasbord of players who hadn't played together. And that's not an excuse. I just really think that's partially why we saw what we saw for the most part. Obviously, there's a certain mentality piece that comes into it, and they didn't start out strong and they didn't press hard. But I think that the missing pieces like that actually come down to tactics and Vlatko, which we could get into.
Yeah, and I'm also going to say, and we'll talk about it a bit later, but you still haven't sorted your 6 problem.
Well, let's start with that. Speaking of tactics and Vlatko Andonovski,
your 6 problem is still a big issue for you guys.
it is the final piece of the puzzle that has not been solved.
It really is, because I think your back 4 is on a lock. You have got defensively, you've got some fabulous players that will fight to the death.
I mean, Naomi Girma, I fall in love with more and more every time I watch her play. You know,
yes.
Same with Emily
and of course,
Fox.
De Bruyne and Fox. Like, you've got these players on lock. Fabulous. They've got good goalkeepers, no matter who it is behind them, directing them. Brilliant. Up front, you have got an Alex Morgan, you have got a Mal Swanson, you have got, these players that can do that. You've got Sophia Smith when she's fit, you've got Trinity Rodman. Like, again, your midfield, and specifically that number 6, is your weak link. It is your chink in your armour, because I think the problem is, and we talk about taxes, is Vlatko doesn't know what he wants to do with it. He doesn't know whether he wants a defensive 6 or if he wants an attacking 6. So he just put someone in the middle and hoping they will feed the ball, and they don't. Because, as we've said before, and we'll say it again, you haven't got Sam Ewis and you haven't got Julia.
Listen, we can't keep bringing it up, Allie. It breaks my heart every time. I know, but we need to move on because they're not here.
No, but Vlatko doesn't know what to do. And that's the problem. That middle piece is so crucial. And it's like, you could work on it. You could fix it if he decided what he wanted. If he wants a defensive 6.
I'm glad you said that, because on the press conference before the Canada game, he was specifically asked, hey, how do you feel about playing double 6s? And he specifically shot down the idea of double 6s and said, we're not going to be seeing double 6s in this game. And through a roundabout way, what I interpreted what he was trying to say was essentially, we're not going to play with a double 6, but the number 8 in Lindsey Horan is going to have more defensive responsibilities to help out the number 6 on defense. So basically on defense, we will be playing kind of double 6s, and on offense, that 8 will then turn into a more of attacking role. So we're putting a lot on Lindsey Horan, which, by the way, is very obvious in the game when you watch.
And that makes him an idiot.
Why? Tell me why you don't like that, like tactically, because I'll tell you why I don't like that tactically too.
Tactically, I don't like it because he has no backup plan if, and this could happen because I saw how she fell in that game, Horan gets injured. Horan, bless her, has a problem where she'll go in too hard, too fast, and will do something to herself.
She's getting a lot of minutes put on her right now.
Exactly. She will break an ankle, she will dislocate a knee, she will do something. And then what does he do? Because he hasn't got a backup number 8 to do the same thing.
Well, I'll tell you what he would do, because we're kind of seeing that problem happening right now because Rose Lavelle has been injured. So we don't have Rose at the number 10. So if that were to happen, I'm guessing he would slot Rose in at the 8 and put Sanchez or somebody at the 10, right? So, but again, it's just it's putting too much. It's putting too much on the number 8. And it's frankly also asking a little too much of the 10, because then the 10 gets isolated. Here's why I don't like the tactics. Because what has happened, and you can see it very clearly in the Japan game too, and I think this is partially why we were unable to maintain a lot of the possession and why our only goal in a lot of our chances came from counterattacks, is because with the 8 dropping into the number 6 on defense, you're left basically with, it becomes a low block, because then our 2 outside forwards also drop in. So now what we have is essentially a triangle in the midfield, in the center midfield, right? With 2 on the bottom. We've got our outside forwards dropped in, and that leaves Alex Morgan as the number 9 by herself up top.
The Lone Ranger, yeah.
Anybody who knows the trouble of the low block is that when you get possession, it's hard to maintain possession because there are no outlets. Because your one outlet is that one player up top who's probably being marked by 2 or 3 other players, right?
And it makes other players, like the other team, will read it really easily. They can tell where you're going because you have no options.
Yeah, exactly, which is exactly what Japan was able to do. And they were able to break down that low block, honestly, very well. And we'll come on to Japan in a second. But in this game, Vlatko was trying Christy Mewis as the number 6. an experiment that we've tried before and we all thought we had moved on from. And I just want to say, look, I love Christy Mewis. I think she's a great player. I think she deserves to be in this pool. She is a number 10 or a number 8. Her qualities, her skills, the way she sees the game, everything about her is not a number 6. It's not. And I would have rather see like Lindsay Horan as the 6 and Christy Mewis as the 8 or something. But Christy Mewis is not a 6. And the fact that we're going back to this experiment, I think just shows exactly what you said. If this is so unsolved. It's unsolved in personnel and it's unresolved tactically. And that's the one thing. I don't know how we got onto negatives because there were a lot of positives here. There were a lot. I'm really happy.
No, there was, because the thing is, and we've said it, it's like the positives are
everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Defensively, lock. Up front, lock. You need to figure this out because you will get found out by teams. And you have been found out by teams. We have seen this building up. Personally, I would, if I was Vlatko, I would look at a double 6 because I think at the moment that is your best option, or I wouldn't have a defensive number 8. I would play it the way that England do and use the way we use Georgia Stanway as that number 8.
I think that's more what will happen if Sullivan ends up playing the 6. But I definitely with a Korniak or anybody else, I think this is where we're headed. All right, let's talk Japan because look, this rivalry is such a fun one. US and Japan have such a storied rivalry. 2011, the World Cup that I believe was hosted in Japan, and Japan won on penalty kicks. Following World Cup 2015 in Canada, the US takes it. It's a 5-2 win. These are powerhouses, and they know each other well, but the teams have changed a lot since their last meeting, which I believe was over 2 years ago. And Japan had fallen off. They'd basically taken a tumble since 2015. And they've been climbing their way back up since then. And I'm so happy to see that they have. And despite the 1-0 scoreline, I think that they showed incredibly well.
Like I said, I had it as a 1-1 game written all over it. They are truly one of the most tactically defensive teams I've ever seen. It's beautiful to watch how they defend, all the way up to the midfield, and I'm sure we'll get onto about their attacking in a bit, but defensively they are such a gorgeous team to watch.
If you're going to comment on their defense, I'm going to comment on their offense. Offensively,
you do it, my friend.
They're such a gorgeous team to watch. We previewed it in our episode last week. They are able to knock the ball so quickly, find little triangles, the movement that you have to have off the ball to find the little triangles all across the field that they are able to find, and the quickness with which they are able to knock the ball around. It is beautiful to watch. They play almost like a Spain in how they are able to keep possession, in that it's not just forward, forward, forward. They're going to take you everywhere and anywhere, and they're going to keep the ball while they do it. And it is absolutely beautiful. The only thing that is missing for them is scoring, which they haven't done. They haven't been able to do this whole tournament.
Yeah, they don't seem to have that out-and-out striker.
That's the missing piece. That's it.
It is the missing piece. But I want to talk about their growth rates, because I think the big difference between what we've seen in 2015, 2019, and then coming up to this year is a lot more players are coming out of the Japanese league. So it was very insular for a long time. They played in Japan, they played for Japanese teams, they played for the national team. We, in this transfer window alone in the WSL, have seen so many Japanese players coming into the WSL. We're seeing them into more European leagues. I know there's a couple over in the USA for the NWSL. And I think having that coaching style and that coaching difference for them to then bring back to the Japanese national team is helping them build up, because not only are they getting different styles of play, they're seeing different styles of play, which means they can then go, aha, Americans like to play like this, so we can play like this.
I think that's a great point. And let's also point out that since their last World Cup victory, the landscape of women's soccer has changed. In 2015, they were, they made it to the finals, but they were destroyed by the US, and then they took a tumble. And that is right around the year, a couple of years after, leagues started to pop up around the world. The NWSL started to pop up, right? The WSL started to pop up. And since then, a lot of development of players has happened in those leagues. So the Japanese league just staying so insular, they couldn't be successful anymore. And I think they've figured that out. I really want to call out, before we move on, Hasegawa has had an incredible tournament. Absolutely incredible tournament for Japan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's just this little Spitfire. She plays for Man City now, and she's just always in their midfield creating all the time. And also one of the nicest people.
Oh, have you met her?
Yeah, she used to play for West Ham, so...
Oh, that's right. That's right. She did. I was like, I knew Allie was going to be happy that I was calling her out, but I was like, but she doesn't play for what she did. She used to.
And now over to the second game in the She Believes second round, which was the much anticipated Canada versus Brazil.
We love this matchup, Allie.
We do. It's such a rivalry going on between the two teams. We love it. We absolutely love it. In this particular matchup, Canada took it 2-0, but before we talk about the game, we do have to do a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit of calling out, because a lot of people have talked about it online, and it's happened in the UK, but to a lesser extent than this, because I would say that the UK commentary was of disinterested people. This was just downright offensive. So the thing for me that has come to my attention that I think is probably one of the most offensive I saw is calling the haka a little chant. The haka, for people that don't know, is a war dance. There is so many connotations culturally, spiritually. You see it with the Australia, New Zealand, any teams that have got like Maori and things like that. And it is, first off, it's beautiful to watch. It is stunning. So to demean it as a little chant is so offensive.
We heard something very similar in one of the commentators speaking about Ludmila, who we'll come on to. She had a stunning game as a forward for Brazil. I mean, maybe MVP for me, but we'll come on to it. And one of the first things that one of the commentators described was talking about her, quote, attitude and aggression. If I have to tell any commentator to not use the word aggression or talk about their attitude when referencing a black player, have you learned nothing? It just is extremely disappointing that we continue to see levels of commentary that are not deserved on these streams. So let's get into the game, into maybe a lighter note. I want to start, we were talking about Ludmila and how many fouls were called against her. This was a physical game, Allie.
As we thought it would be.
Yes, as it always is between these two, as any Canada game is. But mainly between Canada and Brazil. Like, this is truly a rivalry developed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they play each other a lot because of the way that things fall when they do all these tournaments and stuff like that. And you know you're going to go for a battering game. You know, we talked about Japan's technical, and both teams are technical, but the physicality of these teams it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
This was a back and forth game. There was, honestly, my big takeaway from this game, if I were to sum it up in one sentence, is that, frankly, both teams have a lot of trouble playing out of the back, and they continue to lose possession in their defensive third because of that. Now, both of these teams' attacking qualities and the fact that they were continuing to lose possession in their defensive third made for a very exciting game. But if I were to point out one thing that both of these teams tactically need to get better at, that is it.
So that is it. That is everything that's in depth. We've loved it. We've talked about it. Our voices are gone now. Please make sure you check out our socials. We post daily content of various things just to keep you all updated and entertained.
Some of it's fun, some of it's serious. You get everything.
Yep, so that's at the WOSO Show. Also, check out our Patreon, because we will put new content up there. We put up News in 10 on a Tuesday, and we also put our exclusive interviews up there first. We also put them unedited, so if you liked hearing an interview with a certain player and went, I wanted to hear more of that, you got to subscribe to our Patreon.
It's also not a lot of money. If you want to throw us $2, $3, $4 a month, you get all of that content.
Exactly. So, from us, thank you very much for listening. As always, I've been Ali.
I've been Sarah. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.